Hi friends, I'm Phil, the Barista Coffee Dude with baristacoffeelife.com. Thanks for tuning in today, and what I wanted to do is answer the question, what is specialty coffee? It's a term that we hear quite a bit, and do people actually know what it is? Probably not. So what the term specialty coffee tries to communicate is the level of quality of the coffee. So coffee, taste-wise, is scored on a scale from 0 to 100, and it's similar to wine, and it sort of borrows a lot of those ideas. A coffee that lands in the 80 to 100 range on taste ends up being classified as specialty coffee. So that seems like a pretty wide band, like a 20-point band, but in reality, the last statistic I was reading was about 3% of all of coffee that's grown is considered of specialty coffee quality. So really there is a small market of growers that participate in the specialty coffee industry, yet it's a niche that's growing at like 20% per year. It's going gangbusters. So that's a lot of the reasons why there's a price differential between stuff you find at your like regular chain store, grocery store, and what you find in a specialty coffee retail location at a coffee shop or a roastery. So it's just a small supply and a huge growing demand every single year, year over year. So in order to actually understand what specialty coffee is, you sort of have to take a step back and ask yourself, what is coffee in the first place? So coffee is a seed of a shrub, a plant that is grown or farmed. Because it's an agricultural product, there are still 1,000 variables that factor into how the end taste results. So some of those factors I've hit on in the past, but they're your rainfall, the amount of sunlight, the nutrients in the soil, how clean is the farm, like how well do the farmers take care of the land, is it the regarding the harvest, is it the first pick, the second pick, the third pick? All of those picks are going to have different levels of ripeness, just like if you're picking cherries out or tomatoes out of the back of your garden. Those certain picks at certain times of the season, during that harvest season, they're going to have different tastes. All of those same factors play into the agricultural side of specialty coffee. Now regarding the taste, that is more what's on the 80 to 100 point scale. The taste is coordinated or judged by a qualified coffee taster. They're called Q graders. So a Q grader has gone through a series of classes to hone their taste buds and learn what all these like nuances are. Many of you have probably seen or heard of the coffee flavor wheel. Q graders base a lot of their tastes off of the coffee flavor wheel. On top of that, they're also trained in different types of acid, whether it's like citric or malate, so on and so forth. So these Q graders are located at roasteries, some are at coffee shops, a lot of importers are Q graded, a lot of people at co-ops who do blending with a whole bunch of different farmers to create like a sellable amount of coffee, like selling by scale. People at the co-ops and on the farms are Q graded. So that's sort of like the industry tasting standard. When a Q grader is tasting a coffee or cupping a coffee is the term, they are looking for things, they're actually looking for defects. So if a bean is, or a cup is moldy, if it's sort of tainted, if it's off flavored just a little bit, if it's over fermented, if it's metallic, if there's not a lot of sweetness, all of these things play into the Curator Score. So a coffee has to pass that agricultural grading, and it has to pass the coffee tasting or the coffee cupping. Now regarding the agricultural grading, that is in the raw green form, and what they look for when they grade a coffee are things like, they call them blacks. If they're like a black bean, one black equals one. There are things called Quakers, which are when the sugar is not developed in the bean, and when it roasts, then the bean actually doesn't ever brown because the Maillard reaction doesn't take place. So if I remember right, it's 5 Quakers equals 1 black. If there are like sticks and stones in the sample of coffee that they pulled, that green coffee, 1 stone equals 2 blacks. So each of these quality control measures, they will take a coffee from an assumed like 100 or top grade, and they will subtract out a defect here, a defect here, a defect here. And then if the coffee lands within that 80 to 100 scale and on the top grade, then it can be qualified as specialty coffee. So as you can kind of notice, there's a lot of different factors that play into it on the green side and the roasted side, like the taste side. And here's the tricky thing though. Coffee is still really subjective. The buyers that are buying coffee, there are trends in the coffee market. Like right now, you can't get away from an Ethiopia coffee in a competition. You have like the Good Cup Awards and things like that. And Ethiopian coffees are like the thing right now. You can't get away from them. If you try and enter a competition with anything other than an Ethiopian coffee, good luck. You're probably not going to win. So there's that trend. Like 3 or 4 years ago, it was like Panama Geisha, Panama Geisha. Like you were seeing that, all the barista competitions, all of the cupping competitions, all of that was Panama Geisha. So those types of trends within the specialty coffee industry, they do play into how coffee is scored, how it's perceived by curators, how it's perceived by judges. The price of a coffee, it'll fluctuate based on some of those trends. So that's like one thing that you sort of have to keep in mind with specialty coffee is there are trends. There's an ebb and flow about taste preferences within this extremely narrow niche within the coffee world. Also, the sort of subjective thing is coffee changes from region to region or origin to origin for sure. So there are things in like a Sumatra mandolin coffee that are desired, like a musty sort of like forest funk kind of taste in a Sumatran coffee. That is completely okay. And if a cupper tastes that in a Sumatran coffee, it's not going to get as marked down or marked down at all as compared to like if a Costa Rican coffee or a Guatemalan had that same trait in it. So coffee has to be sort of judged on a origin basis, definitely. And it also has to be judged within the context of the trends in the specialty coffee world. So all of that to say, there are some like, there are guidelines for what classifies a coffee as specialty coffee, but within those guidelines, it's still humans, it's still tastes, it's still taste preferences. There are still trends that factor into how we perceive what that 80 to 100 mark ends up being. And that's actually, to me, what turns into the frustrating part is how do you actually like nail down what is specialty coffee? In all honesty, you can't. So that's just kind of one of those things. Wine is exactly the same way. All of the same agricultural factors play into it, same trends, same human perceptions, same like ostentatious attitudes and stuff like that. So coffee in a lot of respects is exactly like that. So hope you enjoyed this video. I'd love to hear some of your comments or feedback. If you think I'm way off base, let me know. I'd love to hear that feedback and maybe you can change my opinion. So peace out, guys. Take care.